Well, good morning from Rouser Radio in Lewes, East Sussex. I'm Keith Hayes, and I'm not sure whether after yesterday's fiasco that we'll ever get through a message to anybody. Anyway, here we go. We appear to be broadcasting this morning. Well, good morning, and it's going to be a cold one today, so get out the woolies if you hadn't already got them out. I'm sure you have, but it's supposed to be minus 10, according to forecasters, probably across our area, from Battle to Brighton, up to Gatwick and Tunbridge Wells. We're not going to see any snow today, but we could easily see it tomorrow. It's unpredictable, and I may say that Lewes seems to have its own micro system, ecosystem, so that we never know whether it's going to snow or not. If it snows here, it doesn't snow elsewhere, and if it snows elsewhere, it doesn't snow here. So heaven only knows what we're going to have, but I think we should be prepared for anything, because it looks as if there's a pretty fair old storm on the way. So get out the woolies, get out the wellies, and watch out for transport. There have been some accidents across the county apparently overnight, and I suspect it's because of frost. I haven't been able to get any detail yet this morning, but do be careful when you're driving. A friend of mine actually just slipped a couple of days or so ago on some ice in a parking lot, and banged his eye, and he looked as if he went 10 rounds with Muhammad Ali, with the eye being pounded in every round. So it does bear warning that walking around and so on can be a bit hazardous, so do be careful. I've got several things to rant about today, but first of all, let's just have a little moan at technology. I've got some real technology moans to go about in a little while. But I was looking this morning, as I do. I flipped through the internet on my iPhone to see what's happening, to try and bring myself up to date with the latest news. And almost without exception, you can go into the news sites and something comes up trying to sell you something. And then something else comes up and warns you about bits and pieces that you've got to be aware of and agree to. And by the time you actually get around to finding the news, it seems to have slipped down the screen, and you can only get half of it. Now, the BBC are the worst, I'm sorry to say. Stick to broadcasting, chaps. Don't go into the technology business, whatever you do. There is a story on BBC that says, words to the effect, East Sussex County Council have apologised for the mess that they've made of the parking ticket situation through libraries. So, very interesting. We need to know that. Can I find that on their main thing? No, not in the least. Once you tap on that, it sends you to something totally different. And can you find that story? No, so I don't know whether it's accurate or not. But what I do know is that there have been fierce complaints about the way that the parking situation is handled. The parking shop was on School Hill, was closed some time ago, and there's a new system for people coming into town, which nobody understood. My neighbour tried to use it and failed abysmally, and he's pretty sharp cookie. There's not much that fools him, but some lady now has complained in Lewes Present, and rightly so. The right hand doesn't seem to know what the left hand is doing. The council tells everybody, go and get your guest parking coupons from the library. And you get to the library, and A, they're busy putting out books, which is their job, and secondly, when you actually go and ask for it, they don't know what the hell you're talking about. It's very typical of what's happening in local government, and that's probably why we exist, because these are the things that we need to put right, and if we can't shame them into it, perhaps eventually we're going to have to organise pickets and go down there and get some action from our very, very poor level of politician and even poorer level of administrator in all the councils. Well, maybe not all. I don't know about the town council. They seem to have quite a good reputation at the moment, but of course they've got limited powers and limited things that they have to do. So perhaps they're safe. Let's for the moment say, town council, you're okay. But the other two are just abysmal. But now they're backed up by the fact that nobody can seem to get our websites right, our news right on the iPhone anyway. Whether it's the same on the computer, I haven't checked. But I do think that one of the things that we could expect and safely expect is that we should have what we expect when we tap into a website. And we most certainly didn't. Well, let's calm down with a bit of music. As you know, one of my favourite duos is Claire and John out of New Haven, a terrific duo. They write and sing and compose their own music. You can see them in various venues around the county and in the next door county, and they're on the way up. They're going to be very famous one day, but they're getting to be pretty well known now. Dandelion Charm. And let's play one of their pieces. At least it's 4 or 5 minutes long, but we'll only play 2 or 3 minutes, but you'll get the idea of just how good they are. So here they are with Skywalker.
It's a tight rope walk on an ice edge, honey, and you can play that game, but it won't be funny for long. Oh, for long. For long. But when she's high, she's a skywalker. Doesn't matter. Just focus your mind on the wire ahead. It doesn't matter. It's a long way down. Long way down. So you place your foot to assess the tension and convince yourself to continue knowing it's wrong. Oh, it's wrong. It's wrong. But when she's high, she's a skywalker. Doesn't matter. Just
Well,
focus your mind.
Claire and John with Skywalker. watch out for this couple. They've put out an LP. You can find them on the internet. You can buy their records. They are very, very good. They are a classic sound in themselves. They don't seem to follow anybody. Dandelion Charm sound, and undoubtedly we'll be talking about that in the not too distant future. Good for them, Claire and John with Skywalker. And we'll get some more of their stuff to play so that we don't have to play the same thing over and over, because we're not a top 40 station. In fact, we're not really a music station. What we try to do is to bring you different sounds, because our main purpose is to try and pinpoint those things in our society that are going wrong. And before I go much further, I should say that we, both with our television, miradortelevision.com, and with our Radio Rouser, we try very hard to be local without being parochial. So, in other words, what happens in 1,000 miles away, if it impacts on us here, and things quite often do, it's the old chaos theory, that on a still day, a butterfly flaps its wings in South America, and it causes a tsunami on the beaches around Brighton. It's that sort of thing. But actually, a lot that happens outside our patch affects us here. And technology is just one of them. But just let me, for the moment, go back to technology, because from the council, which brought you the suggestion of cuts in bus passes, the payment for using the libraries, and not helping kids get to school if they can't afford it, we have wonderful expenditure, because now machines around town that dispense parking tickets, coupons, the things that allow you to park, have been updated with modern technology. So now you can pay with credit cards and so on and so forth. I don't know how much it costs, but they very proudly say, all those machines now, the project has been completed. Well, really, with all due respect, I would prefer not to have them at all. If they'd have spent the money on getting rid of them, that would be one thing. But since they are there, they were perfectly adequate. Why didn't we just leave them and spend the money on something else? And at first, I wasn't terribly sympathetic to the lady that said, I was walking at midnight just by the parking lot over the county council offices, and there were lights burning all over the place. And I thought, well, could be the cleaners or whatever. But I'm beginning to think that we just have sloppy people in charge. We have sloppy people in all our councils. And it's sad. Individually, some of them are very nice. And in fact, I think what's happened is that somebody somewhere down the line read a PR book, because Lewis Council is that they have some ladies on the front desk who are very helpful and very charming and lovely, unless you want actually something done, in which case they look in and they say, oh, well, there isn't a box to tick for that. But they're lovely, and they talk to you in a most charming way. But then there's a little door where people come in and they punch a button and it goes hiss, and they disappear and they come back hiss. And once they go into there, that seems to be a whole area of mire and muck, and that's where they get things so totally wrong. And it doesn't seem to be improving at all. Not from reading the antics that people have to go through to get through on the phone. I'm waiting for a response to a letter. When they send me a letter that they want something, it says, you must respond to this within X number of days all right? So you do that, and then you don't hear anything, because your letter is somewhere in the system. And I haven't a clue where I stand yet. I suspect the next thing that's going to happen is that from Customer First, because they read the book and somebody said, hey, have a nice slogan, Customer First. And that was original, wasn't it? But the Customer First, and the customer most certainly isn't first, not as far as the councils are concerned. They're much more interested in themselves. And actually, if the customer is first, I'd like to know what it's first in. Anyway, let's not get too carried away, because the customer first people surely could have found a better use to their money than refurbishing, if you like, all those awful Daleks that stand around town. As one very prominent citizen said to me, you know, his business was in a 17th century office, beautiful building, and suddenly he's got a Dalek outside. Well, we've grown used to them. When people come into town, they're not used to them. The comments are always negative. You know, what are those dreadful structures? What dreadful structures? We've sort of grown used to them because we pass them every day. What are those dreadful structures that are spotted around town? Oh, well, that's so that you can not get a parking ticket. If you go and put money in, you get out a little chitty and you put it on your car. And then the cherry pickers come around and they say, oh, well, that car's parked legally. Oh, no, it's not. Look, it's within 6 inches of a double yellow line. Bing, let's slap a fine on it. And anyway, the council have said they expect a certain amount of money back from us, so bing is... I mean, the whole system is just silly. And not only that, it's killing the town. It's almost impossible. I mean, for one thing, I'm lucky. I don't have a car anymore, so I'm not subject to this. But if I wanted to drive across to visit somebody the other side of town, unless they get a visitor's parking thing for me, I can't park, even though I've paid for parking privileges in A or Zone B or C or D or whatever. But I need an extra to pay extra to park outside my friend's house. If I can find a parking spot outside my friend's house. The whole thing is, the system is... and I do understand that implementing a parking system, and perhaps there's got to be a parking system, is not easy. But one of the things that I think needs to be in the planners, instead of getting their knickers into a twist over huge projects which are going to cost us 11.5 million quid ultimately, is sat down and really tried to work out sensibly and called in some outside help to get a perspective on the thing, is we could have what would at least be an acceptable parking system in the town. As it is, I mean, everybody is dissatisfied, and it is. It's killing the town. When I was first here 28 years ago now, this was a vital, busy, bustling town. I went up to get a bottle of wine the other night from an off-licence that has closed down. I don't know. I got up there and the off-licence had closed down. But it didn't matter because there wasn't a soul on the streets, and this was about 7 o'clock in the middle of the week. Okay, January is a pretty of a dead month. It's a poor month, but nonetheless, for the town not to be bustling in the evening, because we do have some restaurants and we have pubs and so on and so forth. I've noticed, because I meet on a Sunday night, a couple of friends, in fact, the friend with the black eye, and we always have a pint and a little chat and what's gone on in our lives in the week, and that's it gives us a deal of pleasure because we're all very busy to meet up on a Sunday night. But the pubs are flourishing. A year or so ago, you could actually go and you could actually go into the pub on a Sunday night and you'd be the only people there. Well, that's changed. So there is a shift. But it's to the pubs, not to the hotels, not to anything that might pass for entertainment outside. The castle precincts, beautifully lit, but nobody really there taking a look. The town is dead, and it's a pity, and perhaps that's the sort of regeneration that I'm looking for. Not a rejuvenated Dalek that is simply there to try and take money from people for having the privilege of parking. I know, I'm going to get a right backlash. Keith, you don't understand how complicated it is and what an issue it is, and it needs a lot of thought, and these things are the best that we can get. Well, you know, I spend a lot of time, or have spent a lot of time, until recently, travelling right across the continent in many of the old Soviet satellite countries and so on and so forth. And the one thing that they don't want to do is they don't want to accept change. And change is on the way, and they have to accept it and get on with it. And you have to warn them that things can't stand still because they've been so used to nothing much happening within that old Soviet system. With it becoming the same, people don't think that change is going to happen, and it is. But when it happens, we've got to come to grips with it. We've got to be able to handle it and make it work for us, instead of allowing the machines to take over, and the computers are taking over. Oh boy, don't get me on the computers, because my last comment this morning will be about the bank's computers. But we better calm down again. What should we play now? Let's see what we haven't. How about Easy Saturday? Let's see what Easy Saturday has to offer. Well, that was an easy Saturday, wasn't it? Yeah, it was quite charming. And actually, the nice thing is that, you know, some of these things that will go unheralded are lurking on YouTube and other social media outlets and music apps. And some of them are really nice, and I'm glad that because we don't have much money that we have to use some of these things because they're free. But I think some of this stuff is really very, very nice. If you're into top 40 and so on, I suppose you'll go bleh. But if you're willing to be a little bit Catholic in your taste of music, then there's no reason why these things shouldn't give a great deal of pleasure. That one I thought was rather pleasant, rather pleasant. Easy Saturday, it was called. I don't know who it's by. That's sometimes the problem, is some of this stuff is very good, but they don't give you who the composer or the musician is. So to give them the proper credit is a bit difficult. Anyway, let's go back to computers, because I have just put out on Facebook. How many people will see it, how many people will read it, I don't know. But I put out a warning. do not trust the apps that banks and credit cards put out. I'm like a lot of people, including the banks themselves. I use the computed stuff to tell me where I stand with my accounts and what I can pay and what I can't pay and how I pay. And the last 2 weeks, they have been wildly inaccurate. So I get warnings, alerts, you only got a fiver left in this account. No, I haven't. I've got 120. You told me that just an hour ago. Well, you haven't anymore. And what's gone wrong with the computers, I have no idea, but it seems as if they suddenly are computing things very slowly. And if they're going to be of help and allow me to pay bills immediately, they've got to let me know accurately how much money I've got in my account. Because otherwise I'm going to try to pay things which they permit me to do and then come back and say, hey, you're way over your account limit. That's not helpful. Not only is it not helpful, but it's downright disruptive, and it's miserable. And of course, every time that things like that happen, is somewhere somebody else's computer is going ping. This person didn't pay his bill, or this person managed to get an account sent back. I mean, our whole system depends upon accuracy, and if the banks can't get it right, not that they've got much right recently, then I think that let's start a campaign to tell them to take their apps down. Oh, I'm terribly sorry. That sounds a bit naughty, doesn't it? Take your apps down. But the fact of the matter is that these systems really, really do need to be not only accurate, but up to date, effective, and they shouldn't go wrong. And they patently are. Now, I have to go to London later, but I have got time to go down, and I'm going to go down to my bank manager. No, I don't have a bank manager, but I'm somebody in the bank, and I'm going to say, you know something? Your apps are just not working. And they'll say, oh, dear, well, we don't do them in this branch. We'll let our IT people know. Well, the IT people will say, don't be silly, nothing goes wrong with our apps. So the whole thing, so I'm just simply going to stop using them. And if the banks don't like checks, tough, you're bringing it on yourselves. You're becoming retroactive, if that's the right word. If you can't make these things work and work effectively, for goodness sake, don't ask us all to get used to them and use them, and then you get us into a pickle, and you send us £12, and if I send back a demand for £12, it goes not only unanswered, but it shows once again as a deficit in my account. A bit naughty, chaps. It's a bit naughty. I've always said I wish I had got shares in those people that make escalators, because the damn things are always breaking down, but people buy more of them. That's got to be you make something that doesn't work, and people demand more and more of them. It looks as if the apps are going the same way, particularly for the banks. And some of these apps for other things are becoming more and more difficult to excuse me, little throat clearing there. They're becoming more and more difficult to use because instead of leaving well enough alone, the people that build these things say, let's tinker with them. Well, stop tinkering, please. Please, 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 stop tinkering. Well, that's the way I see it this morning, and there's another 30 seconds to go. So I will say goodbye, I think, before I get myself into any more trouble. But I had a good go this morning. Is there anybody who's doing anything right? I don't know. I haven't looked, because I keep on finding all the things that are going wrong. So, if so many things are going wrong, it's almost impossible to find any information about the things that are going right. Okay? I'll talk to you tomorrow. Till then, toodle pip. forget, watch out for the snow and the frost. Looks as if it's going to be pretty fierce.